Okay. Oh shit, we're live. And we don't have any idea what we're going to talk about, but and that means that I'm probably going to want to talk about Sal Cordova.
Well, that's fine.
Because I shouldn't talk about Sal Cordova.
Yeah. So you need somebody else to be your conscience for you?
Well, that's never worked before. My mom tried for a long time, and
yeah, I don't want the job.
Yeah. I guess, first of all, I have a video up here by I guess a lot of people know about this guy, but I don't know about him or didn't know about him until yesterday. But it's called Beau of the Fifth Column. And I'm going to put this video in my description. I think everybody should watch it. But it's basically a Democrat taking a look at what Trump accomplished in his office from the point of view of the conservatives and a Trump supporter. And he does a really good job of putting out 12 points of things that Trump did while he was in office. And he does it very, very well. And it's kind of convincing. But it's got kind of a twist ending. And I don't want to give the ending away. But I think everybody should watch this. It's really kind of interesting and chilling at the same time. So,
yeah.
Okay, so
I will definitely watch it later.
Yeah, I thought I want to check further into it and take a look at it. So I just thought I'd put that out there. And
have you ever heard of the podcast Behind the Bastards?
What's that?
Behind the Bastards?
No, I haven't.
It's I forget the name of the guy who hosts it, but they look up various nasty and undesirable people in history. And the last few weeks, they've been like looking at Mussolini's career and how he took over Italy.
Yeah.
And I think they've done Hitler in the past. And it's interesting stuff. He really goes in depth. But like I said, I can't remember the guy's name now that I'm on the spot.
Yeah, I think my kids were like 8 or 9 years old, and I remember having talks with them about how easy it would be for us to lose our country, you know, what we consider the United States, what we consider good about it. And I think in the last 4 years, that has been borne out, that because of differences in ideas, it is possible for us to lose this idea of a democracy, basically. And it could happen very easily. And it's really kind of unsettling to think how easy one particular ideology could take over and to demonize another. And I think it kind of ties into what we're doing with creationists, because that thing that Danny said the other day on Praise's video, or I think Maddox's video, about how he was pushing back against the idea that creationists are people that want to dominate and want to control. I don't think that's true at all. You got to separate it. There are people who are creationists. You know, some of them, some ex-creationists are people that we have on this channel regularly, right? And they were brought up in it, and those aren't the people we're talking about. We're not talking about everybody that's a creationist. We're talking about this Ken Ham. Well, I don't know if Kent Hovind's a player anymore, but the Ken Ham, ICR, Answers in Genesis, that whole movement that's basically been trying to create an alternate educational system in this country, so they can bring people up with a different kind of science or different idea.
Right. Yeah, their own science that happens to think like them.
Right. And I think, and then I was surprised in the last year when I would stop into their streams, that every time I would stop in to listen about an attack against evolution, the ideas of evolution, if I listened long enough, they would eventually get on to politics, and things like anti-vax, climate change denial, Trump, and COVID denial all came up together on these same streams. And I thought, what the fuck is happening here? What is why are these things bundled together? Why did John Maddox do this big thing about how the election was stolen? He did a debate on Modern Day Debate. Why is their politics the same across the board, and yet there's this science denial? So I mean, it was really kind of unsettling to find these things all clumped together.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything other than that clumps them together, other than this attitude that we are justified and we are right and we have the one true morality, and we are going to put it upon you whether you fucking like it or not. You know, you
There's
vote.
a thing called Dominion theology.
Dominion.
That I think it actually kind of was created or at least festered in South America.
Okay.
And then eventually it took over political and theological circles here in America. There's also just the whole idea of, the evangelical movement has been getting into politics for decades. So, and among them, a subset of them is the creationists. I mean, you can be a creationist and an evangelical and a dominionist at the same time. That may be possible that you could be a creationist and not be any of those other things.
Yeah.
But there is a significant overlap. So you can be a creationist who doesn't want to take over the world because of his creationism, but will certainly vote against same-sex marriage, will certainly vote to outlaw abortion in any form, who will certainly only campaign for Christian politicians.
Yeah.
So the whole control thing is part of it. Creationism is its own unique subset of some of that, of the evangelicalism anyway.
Yeah. So Dessel Dre said something about but Roe opening with politics. I don't like politics usually, but for some reason I've been thrust into it over the last 4 years. I have been thrust deeper and deeper into politics than I ever wanted to go. And I don't know. Yeah, what does he say? I'm just a political weirdo who doesn't agree with any established party line. Good. I guess that's the way I think I probably always identified as that kind of political weirdo, that I was I'm very pissed off at both parties because of the candidates that they've chosen over the last, 10 years or whatever. I don't think they've been very good.
I'll be against just about any established political party. When I'm driving under the bridges near the downtown, there are no more homeless people sleeping there.
Yeah.
And they're not sleeping there because they've been provided with secure homes with secure food sources.
Yeah, not because they've scooped them up and hauled them to
right. So
camp somewhere. Right. Well, the interesting thing is when I was, I grew up on the Iron Range, and the Iron Range had iron mining, and then the iron veins got a little too deep, and the best ore deposits kind of run out. So they came up with taconite, and I worked at a taconite plant, and taconite is sort of a processed iron ore. They take a lower quality ore, and with a huge plant, they turn it into high quality iron ore, that sort of thing. And anyway, we went through lots of ups and downs with the unions and with periods of unemployment, and then boom and bloom, over and over again. And in 1974, I became homeless and unemployed on the Iron Range. And there was a construction boom going on up there because they were building a bunch of new taconite plants. And I had dropped out of high school. I went to college. I dropped out of college. I don't know. Getting from a high school dropout to a college student is not really that difficult, actually. But I did that. So I was like in electrical engineering, but I ran out of money. And, I was living in a dump of a hotel trying to go to school and all at the same time. Anyway, So when I was around 28 years old, I had a bunch of things happen to me that were interesting. I always describe it as like the three prophets came to me and they said, go south, young man, go south, And anyway, so I became involved with this government program called CETA, CETA. And they tested me and they decided that my brain worked rather well. So they hooked me up. They paid me $2.35 an hour to go to school down in Minneapolis. So with $30 in our pocket and a U-Haul and a promise that they were going to financially help us, we headed, down to the big cities, from northern Minnesota. And I went to school and I got paid for it. I tested out of 1 quarter in electronics school and then completed the class and then went to work as one of the lowest paid members of the entire class because I took a chance on a computer retail store. And I ended up making within 3 months, I was making 3 times what any one of those electronic students were making because I got into the right business at the right time into microcomputers. But the government spent, I don't know. Okay. So for 9 months times $2.35 an hour times 40 hours a week. What is that? I mean, how much did they spend? And as a result, from then on, I went into the upper 5% of the income in the United States and stayed there until now, paying taxes on that, right? Uh-huh. So I think they made, a $10,000 investment. And within the first year, they got all of that back in taxes and more. And I mean, and that was a focused government program. And the neat thing about it is that it wasn't a bullshit program where, if you make money somewhere else, you have to, you can't go out and get a part-time job, because I had to work a lot of part-time jobs in order to supplement our income. And it, it was just this wonderful program where you go to school, we'll pay you. That's it. Went to school. And then because the program worked so well, they decided to dissolve it.
Yeah, you need to do that whenever a government program does what it needs to do, because you just can't have that catching on.
Yeah, and half the reason it was probably dissolved is because nobody had ever heard about it, because it wasn't popular, because it didn't have a large bureaucracy. It didn't have, all this craziness. There was no controversy. It was too inexpensive to even talk about. So,
yeah.
I mean, it's just amazing. And I couldn't believe it. They dissolved the program. And it was what completely changed my life and got me out of, like, when you're homeless and when you're living in a low income environment and you're living in a depressed area, everybody that's on the outside of that, people with jobs and people with money and homes and income, they look and say, oh, well, why don't you just pull yourself up by your bootstraps and get on out of there, right? Yeah. Why don't you do something about your situation? Well, for me, when I lived there, it was like being inside of a bowl and I couldn't see over the edge of the rim. Mm-hmm. And as far as I knew, there'd be dragons out there, right? Because for me to take the chance of, we had $100 car and I think a $20 U-Haul rental full of our possessions and $30 in our pocket. And we drove down to the big city. And that was the craziest fucking thing that you would ever do. We ended up almost starving to death, literally, like running out of food and not being able to eat, because some of the government programs didn't kick in right away.
Yeah, they didn't want you to, have anything left by the time they kicked in. Right,
and the other thing is, when I was homeless, when I was living up in the range, I would get the paper every day, and I would find 20 jobs to apply for, and I would go to those jobs just religiously. I'd crawl out of my hole and or whoever's house I was staying at, or the caboose that I slept in, or whatever the hell, and I would go and I would start applying for these jobs. And by the time I got through the fourth one, they either told me that I was too smart to work for them, or I was too inexperienced to work for them. Never go ahead and work for me, son. It was always, one
Yeah.
thing after another. It was the most depressing thing I'd ever done. And by the end of that, by noon, I was in a bar somewhere, fucking,
Well, it's hard to hear no 20 times in a row.
Yeah.
And then get up and go do it the same thing again the next day.
right. And to go for a job interview when you haven't been able to take a shower, you don't have any clothes, it's just, and you have to walk, in the extremely hot sun or extremely cold Minnesota winter. It is a fucking bear. So, I mean, I understand why people need a leg up.
Yeah.
Those
boots those straps are on that people tell you to pull up
are
actually in some rich person's house.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
What you're getting is the sons and daughters of people who, had college funds for them and et cetera. Only they don't believe, though they don't think about all the people that had to work hard to get them to a position where they can take advantage of their privilege.
Oh, what kind of jobs did I apply for? Going to work at in a mining community, they have all these small offshoot manufacturing places that, like metal shops and tire, like they sell truck tires for those gigantic trucks or something, or gas delivery or shit like that, just hardware stores, garden stores, whatever. There wasn't a lot of fast food back then, so it wasn't like you could go to McDonald's and go to work. That didn't exist, basically. I don't think there was such a thing as fast food, was there? Yeah, they had. I think they got a Kentucky Fried Chicken in '74 and stuff like that. But
didn't Wendy's come out with their stuff in the '70s?
Yeah. So
a lot.
Yeah, I think we had like maybe 3 fast food places in the entire Iron Range, and those jobs were not easy to get, so it didn't work. Anyway, but I think that's something that when I started making money and I started rubbing shoulders with people that had money, and they would start talking about, giving these people welfare and all that shit. I was just like, hey, let me tell you a story.
Yeah.
A little fucking humility here, because you don't know what it's like to be those people and to wake up in that kind of poverty. The other thing is, living in Minnesota is really easy if you've got a lot of money. But boy, if your car doesn't start and you have a shitty car to begin with and you have to work outside and things like that, it could be a real tough existence. It really isn't anything. And I was blessed from the time I was 30 onwards. I never wanted for a job, it was just always there. And
there were a few times where I was between jobs longer than I cared to be, but somehow managed.
Ideological pleiotropy.
I think I would be slapped in the face if I said that to anybody face to face. What we have here is some ideological pleiotropy.
Yeah, they'd kick your ass. Yeah.
I know. It's like, what did you say to me?
Yeah. What do you mean by that? So that paper we were reading yesterday, I think we both decided that it requires more attention than we were giving it, right?
Yes.
And
you can't just like copy and paste a small quote from it and then boom, you have to read it and then try to understand it and then figure out how to communicate it. And that's a tough thing to do at that level. And
the interesting thing is they talk about self-organization and self-assembly. And self-assembly, I wrote a little note to myself on the top of the paper yesterday, and it said self-assembly equals evolution. And what I mean by that is I've been harping on this thing about embryology is a miracle. It's a miracle that the zygote can develop into an organism.
Mm-hmm.
And That right there, if you accept that a zygote can develop into a fully functioning organism, even if you don't know it, you have already accepted evolution. Because everything that goes into that has gone into evolution.
Yeah.
And I would like to talk more about those points. So as we go through this paper, I think I will do a PowerPoint presentation and get my highlights. I got my highlights in hard copy form, and I can put them on my PDF document, and we'll go through it at some point. So that'll be one of the paper trails things, and maybe you and I can do that together and just start kicking around some ideas.
Okay.
I was going to look this Nicholson up and try to find it, but then I distracted myself. Daniel J. Nicholson.
You saw,
Huh?
you saw a shiny object and then forgot about it.
I saw a shiny object. I had a taste for it. Interesting thing about chickens, if you watch chickens feeding out in the yard, like if you let them run free, they pick all kinds of seeds, and they eat rocks. Lots of rocks. Yeah, and they'll look out and they'll see something, and you can see them sticking their neck out, and they spot something on the ground, and they run full force, real fast to go get it. And then about halfway there, they stop and they look around like, where was I going again? They're so into running that they totally forget what they were looking at. They have the brain. I guess they have bird brains.
They must.
One could say.
Well, I must be a bird brain too, because I forget where I was going when I'm halfway there.
Yeah.
Half the time.
Yeah. Sometimes I forget where I am, where I'm going.
Well, I don't know if this is an old picture, but this Daniel J. Nicholson looks kind of wild. I'll send you a link real quick, and you can look at it.
I'm looking at him.
Oh, yeah. Okay, you've already looked it up.
I just looked it up now.
He's well published.
Yeah. He's a lot younger than I thought he would be. Or at least he's looking young here. So let me see if I can make that window a little more sizey.
Yeah, so here's his paper right here. 36 citations on that. Is the cell really a machine? And last year he did, reconceptualizing the organism from complex machine to flowing stream.
Everything flows towards a processual philosophy of biology. Processual? On nature normativity. Oh my God. Danny would love this guy.
Is the organism really a machine? So he is really into this theoretical frameworks of biology.
He is. And
there's a big gap between like 2013, 2014, and then recent times. So I guess we've been getting some sort of study in, or maybe on some projects.
Is this Twitter? Or no, find more people who like by connecting with Google and Facebook. Okay, so that. Oh, they have. You see that? Interesting. There's a little message button there.
Uh-huh. Oh, there you go.
Oh, what would we do with that?
Maybe see if you might want to come talk to us.
I don't know. Maybe we'll read his paper first, so we can impress him a little bit. Like we read your paper. But yeah.
Looks like creation. Oh, they're creation myths. I wish he would come on and talk to us.
I wish he'd come on and talk to us, Dan.
Yeah. He probably gave us a reason why he wasn't going to do that up above.
Yeah, he'd probably give us. Oh no. My favorite is here.
I gave you a link in the private chat to the little list of his papers.
Okay.
That I found.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. How we?
Good afternoon.
Hey, how's it going, Athena?
A bit bored. That's why I joined Speed's stream. In order to liven it up because Smokey loves me.
Oh my God. Have you been over to see Smokey lately?
No, not really. I haven't talked to him in a while. We don't, we're not buddies.
Yeah. Well, I thought you
Did
guys
you
were.
see where Rage played some of a pre-Smokey Saint discussion between Jesse Lee Peterson and
Yeah, he was reasonable for some reason. What the fuck happened, Smokey?
well, it was full frontal Smokey. I mean, it was him. What was without the avatar. So that was interesting.
Yeah.
Let's see. Christian myths. Okay, these guys are talking politics too. God, what did I do to this panel?
I know you turned it into some sort of political thing.
You know, I'm just rolling around basking in Biden. I mean, like,
I won my $1,400.
Maybe Dr. Dan will tell me if he when this microchip is gonna kick in that I got from my COVID vaccine.
yeah.
Now I don't have to use my remote control garage opener anymore. But I was hoping I could use it to run my microwave oven from the living room.
Okay, how the fuck did this whole microchip thing even get started? It's retarded.
Oh, way in the stinky inner parts of the rack wing. The parts that don't see the light of day, apparently. They came up with that. It's so funny. I thought I'd go with it.
I really hate
how well the county put together the vaccination program, because the line was long and I did have to wait in line for like 30 or 40 minutes, but the line was constantly moving. And then once we got indoors, I think it was maybe before somebody got to the before I got to somebody, and then another 5 minutes before I actually got the needle put in my arm. So they're doing a pretty good job. I guess my property
the needle
well spent.
Yeah, you got the needle.
Yeah.
Okay, here's how you tell if the chip's working.
Okay.
Oh, that's Longhorn. I don't know what that is. Okay, if you hear that when you wake up in the morning,
oh, okay.
then you know the chip's working.
That's right. Right. Okay.
Okay.
I'll keep an ear out for that.
Yep. Then you know you got the chip.
Now, if I could just send commands to my dog to bring me a Diet Coke, that would. I would never have to leave the house.
Yeah.
I mean, you say that, but I've seen videos of of dogs being trained to to get beers out of the refrigerator, right? Like that was interesting. It's like, hey, Spot, give me a beer, and then you see the dog run to the to the fridge and pull on the rope and then get him a beer. Like, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, I want a microchip in order to control the world.
Oh, no, you don't. You don't want that responsibility. Trust me. It doesn't work. So, Sal Cordova, he's got a couple of things I'd like to look at. One of them is he claims to have completely refuted the Nilanase idea.
Isn't Sal your worst enemy now?
What's that?
Isn't Sal your worst enemy now?
No. I've been. I actually reached out to him today, and he actually responded to my email and said he doesn't want to talk to me. But
yeah, that's what I mean. Worst enemy.
Is that what that means? I don't know. But anyway, he didn't want to talk to me because he didn't want the drama. Anyway, so he came up with this Nilanase paper, him and Sanford. And they actually got a paper published, and he claims to have refuted the idea that it was a de novo gene. And I want to take a look at that, and I want to take a look at his DL ratios, that idea that came up, which I think was something he came up with 15 years ago. And then the new thing we're going to want to look at is Saul Cordova's work that he's doing on the impossibility of the nucleus evolving. So, and Danny is here, and Danny is our what would you call it? Special guest.
Wait, that paper, that seems very interesting to me. On nature and normativity.
Which one? Oh,
that's a philosophical question.
Yeah, this guy does theoretical philosophy of science.
Oh, I need to look up that paper because I think that's a big problem for especially biology more than any other discipline. I wonder what he says.
I don't know. He's got a PDF here that apparently I can just
Yeah, I'm
download.
Googling it. Who is it?
His name is Daniel J. Nicholson. Damn it, what did it do? Okay, download PDF. Whoa, we got it. It's academia. So I'm on academia. I didn't realize that.
I think I actually opened an account with them.
Yeah, I get messages from them every day. It's amazing. David Abel, he's put about 40 papers up in the last couple months, and he's an intelligent designer that is cited. Okay, John Maddox. That's his favorite, his go-to. Okay. And not only that, but I think AIG or one of those places, ICR, they had a list of the 100 top papers that people should read from real scientists. And I think 42 of them were Abel. So like half of the reading list was David Abel, you know.
Yeah,
and that was the one
when I was in college or seminary, professors really didn't like it when you lean too heavily on one particular person.
Yeah. Really interesting. And P.Z. Myers, he was the one where P.Z. Myers fought. He's like the president of some biological semiotics research institute. And he went. No. P.Z. Myers was looking at David Abel. David Abel has 2 listings of institutes that he is the director of. And one of them was like biological information and semiotics or something like that. So P.Z. Myers looked up the address and he found a house in a little house in a suburban community in Colorado or something. And he zoomed in on it with Google Maps. It was some dude's house, right? David Abel's house. And he was listing it as the address of this institute that he was the director of. And it was pretty funny. And P.Z. Myers made the comment, is the department of whatever in the closet. It's like, so he kind of caught him.
My house an institute?
What's that?
You mean I can make my house an institute?
Yeah, you can. And you can start publishing papers.
I could class up this joint without having to do anything to it.
Yeah. Yep. Chrome tab, application window, nature and normativity.
Yeah, I'm reading it right now.
Have Speed trained to get her beer. Angela. I just read the comment that I put up by Grasshole. Saul was mad. You want him to take your real name out of one of his stream. You threaten him. Oh yeah, no, that wasn't why he was mad. He was mad at me because I asked him for his paper and because I said that I kicked his ass. No mention of him having laughed at me over and over on Standing for Truth's channel on 2 or 3 different occasions by taking a little soundbite out of something that I said to him in one of our chats together. He has not mentioned that at all. But I don't want to create any static between me and Sal. So I won't bring that up. Did I bring it up?
It's too late. It's already there.
Fuck. What have I done? Oh, I don't know. Anyway, when I reach out to talk to somebody, I get a little butthurt when they tell me to fuck off, I guess.
Yeah. Nobody wants to hear that.
No. When you extend an olive branch and somebody bites it off.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, like I
Mhm.
said, he's passive aggressive. He's
Yeah.
got some wiring there that needs to be adjusted, I think. But don't we all? Don't we
Well,
all?
that just makes me think about his stuff more. You know, I don't know. That just focuses me when somebody does that to me. Okay, Spectre hunting contemporary Anglophone philosophy. What the fuck is that, Danny?
So there's a big problem in science to make sense of certain normative concepts. A lot of these normative concepts are naturalized as to eliminate the whole concept to something else. So I'll give you a good example. The notion of function, right, kind of implies a purpose, right? That something can function and malfunction. But biology, oh, and there's a Kill Bill Grommy. Oh my gosh, this is crazy. And I looked up these two philosophers, they're renowned. Lenny Moss is at Notre Dame, which have an incredible philosophy department, especially with respect to philosophy of science. And that Nicholson guy is very, very well read, and his interests include philosophy of science and biology. But anyways, you see the name Akil Bilgrami there? Remember, I linked you a book that kind of inspires my form of non-naturalism.
Yeah.
So he cites him, but that's so weird that I just caught that on your screen. But anyways, there's a problem here, right? If function is not understood normatively, then the meaning of function kind of reduces down to just what a thing is doing. And that seems to not track what we mean when we're discussing the function of, let's say, a molecule, a gene, or even an organ. So this is a huge problem in our language, especially when it comes to biology. That we want to say that the heart has a function, and that if it doesn't function in that kind of way, that there's some kind of malfunction. But that requires a normative concept, which is arguably a very non-natural kind of thing, right? Arguably. So I'm just looking through the kind of conclusion here. I'm just reading through the introduction right now. But that's basically the problem that between normativity and nature is that they're prima facie diametrically opposed, but one uses the other.
Say that again. Prima facie diametrically opposed.
Right. That something that's normative cannot be natural, and something that's natural cannot be normative. That's the on the glance assessment. So people try to come up with clever ways to harmonize them, whether to reduce one to the other, or eliminate one, or kind of come with weird concepts like supervenience, which is not an identity relation, not really a predication. It's like a weird term used in philosophy of mind to like talk about how one set of facts are supervene on another set of facts, such that if there's a change in one, there's a change in the other, and it's not a causal change. But anyways, that's why the paper caught my eye, because
I just want to correct something you said. You said science has a problem. I think philosophy has the problem.
Problem. This is a philosophical problem. Yeah. So yeah. This is up to philosophers to fix, not scientists.
Yeah. Dr. Dan.
Hey, can you all hear me?
I can.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you okay.
I'm doing this on
I hear you now.
I'm doing this on the phone while I'm building a shelf in my basement. But I just wanted to jump in because Danny is using the wrong definition of function for biological systems.
I didn't even define it.
That kind of well, you said it implies a purpose, which it doesn't. Function in biology is the thing that
you didn't hear me. Let me repeat myself. I said that in the normal philosophical context, it implies.
Hold on, both of you, Dr. Dan, you really are breaking up a lot.
Oh yeah, I'm on my phone, and it's not an optimal setup here.
Well, let me
Is there any-
repeat what I said, so at least he's attacking the right view, right?
Is
This
there-
is what I said, that function and malfunction refer to telos or purpose, right? Now, in
No,
the context of
that's
science,
not, but that's not
I'm
what
saying
function means
you're not
biology.
letting me finish. I'm saying in the philosophical sense, right? In the scientific sense, it refers to behavior. It doesn't refer to purpose.
behavior?
It doesn't refer to behavior either. It refers to what it has been selected to do, which is not behavior.
Yeah, which
Wait,
leads us into our
It's selected to do. Doing is a kind of behavior.
Molecules don't have behaviors.
right.
You know what? Have you? We're just talking past each other. Do you know what I mean by behavior?
Apparently not, because you're saying molecules have behavior. Molecules don't have behaviors. They have
Do you know what I
activities.
mean by behavior?
You can define it if you want, and then I will.
Okay, something like a kind of physical effect or physical cause would be considered a behavior.
So an activity.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so molecules have activity. The word for that in biology is activity, not behavior. Behavior has a very specific word in biology.
Right.
It's a very specific meaning.
Yeah, and it has a specific meaning in philosophy.
Okay, but
Yeah.
you're talking about problems with biology, so you should use the biology terms.
I'm not. I'm talking about philosophy of biology. Look at the title. Look at the paper that's posted. These two writers, Lenny Moss and Daniel Nicholson.
I
are
can't
philosophers.
see the screen because, like I said, I'm building a shelf in my basement right now, so I
Okay,
can't see the screen. I'm just listening.
They're both philosophers of science. You're never going to come
See-
across this kind of paper in a science journal.
Well, so this is where I get impatient with philosophy of science, because what it boils down to is philosophers telling scientists they're doing their job wrong, but they don't understand
Right.
the job that
It's up to
scientists
us,
are doing.
though. It's not up to you.
Oh, it's up to me. No, it's very much up to scientists to
You're doing
define what
philosophy
their
right
role
now.
is and how to
You know
do it.
You're doing philosophy right now when you're telling me what you mean by these terms.
So I'm telling you the
Right.
biological
No.
definition for terms, and you're telling me the definition or something else.
Do you know
and
what I
like,
mean by
that's
philosophy?
just wrong.
Do you know what I mean by philosophy?
Do I know
No
what you
over-
mean by philosophy?
Either-
Why don't you just start off by defining all the terms you're using?
This is why
Yeah.
nobody likes you, Danny.
Well, yeah, people that are ignorant typically don't like me. Anyways,
Yes, Danny.
philosophy is just,
Yes, I'm.
Wow.
Whoa.
Danny, I like you, and I'm totally ignorant.
yeah, you're ignorant of the use of the word philosophy in this context, right?
But
As-
Danny,
so-
you're telling us that science and specifically biology has a problem with the concept of function, and you don't. You're misstating what that term means in biology. You're giving us
It has a
the
problem with normativity.
philosophy definition of it. You're giving us the philosophy
but I'm saying
definition of
that
it and
even
trying
if
to
you
apply
understand
that definition to biological systems, and
It's-
that definition
look,
doesn't
the way that I
apply.
defined it, the way that I defined it is actually a true dichotomy. Okay, so it's either you're going to define it in the philosophical way, or in this other way that I gave, giving a particular understanding of behavior. Now that is going to be ultimately a true dichotomy, and I'm saying that they're both problematic.
Yeah, but you brought in another word, behavior, which
See,
to us is something totally
Behavior requires a nervous system.
right.
Now that's you don't
Well,
think
not
plants
technically, but it requires
Well, yeah.
a stimulus and a response. It doesn't require a nervous system technically, but it requires a stimulus and a response.
Yeah, so don't
Yeah,
use the
well,
word behavior.
there's going to be problems with that too. But
Well,
anyway,
but here's the thing, Danny. Once again, you're telling us that the biological definitions are wrong, but like the definitions
no,
are
I'm
they
saying
are.
they're problematic. They imply there's issues with their usages.
Well, is there issues with your understanding of what we're saying?
Well, you don't
I think
even
that might be
understand what
more
I'm
likely.
Right. Look, he doesn't even, when he's just, I would guess, I would wager that Dan does not know the distinction between philosophy and science.
I would wager that Dan doesn't give a shit.
Well,
I
that's
would-
the
I think
problem.
The
That's why
definition
he's speaking
between
out of his ass.
philosophy and science.
That's why you're speaking out of your ass, because you don't know the distinction.
Wait, hey, Danny,
Dan,
relax.
slow down.
Please.
Slow your roll a little bit on Dr. Dan.
Like, okay, it's fine to argue, but holy shit, you're being
Yeah.
being
fucking
insulting.
slow your roll.
Can I just step in with some quick thoughts?
Drace?
Yes,
Yeah, go ahead.
thank
Oh, hey,
you.
Dessel.
So, I mean, like this kind of conversation, it happens a lot when philosophers and scientists get together. The philosopher will kind of put his nose up at the scientist, and the scientist will put his nose up at the philosopher, and they'll continue to just have this discussion where like each one looks at the other as if they're just almost like totally useless in the relevant respect of the conversation. But what I wanted to ask Danny at first. Danny, have you read Daniel Dennett's most recent book, From Bacteria to Bach and Back?
I can't stand reading Daniel Dennett.
Heard. I don't mind Daniel Dennett. I mean, like, I don't think that he gets as deep into certain subjects as he should. Nevertheless, he gives an account of teleology in that book from a naturalistic perspective. So it'd be relevant material for you to read if you're interested on this topic.
I'm already aware, right, of the problem.
You're not aware if you haven't read the book. If you haven't read it, how are you aware?
I'm saying that it's impossible to reduce a teleological concept to a naturalistic concept.
When you're done,
impossible. If you're going to say that
I
it's
have a
impossible,
question.
you want to familiarize yourself with the various accounts that say that it's not impossible.
I'm familiar
and
enough.
If you haven't done that yet, then maybe you're
you're making the claim that I haven't done that yet.
Danny, arrogance is unbecoming.
You said that you haven't read the book.
I've read enough to know that it's not worth reading.
Oh, right.
Okay.
So basically,
Good,
this is another empty posture. This is puffer fit.
Look, you're doing
This
the
is
same.
what you do when you
Stop
haven't
buying
read
books.
material and you want to act as if you have an
you're doing the same thing.
excuse for
You're
not
doing the
covering
same
that material.
You're doing the same thing.
Can
and
we
saying that
talk
I don't
one at a
understand
time?
biology. I haven't read Daniel Dennett.
You're deliberately
Wow.
avoiding engaging with the accounts that would argue that
You
you're
haven't
wrong.
presented an
It's what
account.
you're doing, and then you're pretending as if not engaging
You
them
have
don't
not
is not
exist.
presented
justified.
an account.
Danny, Jesus Christ, you're over talking, Grace. You've got to slow down and talk one at a time, okay?
Yes.
May I
yes,
just
You have not
on-
presented an account.
Okay.
He is,
Wow.
he is just,
Hold on,
he's
hold on,
justifiably-
everyone. Dr. Dan, I'm going to mute you because you're building a cabinet.
Oh yeah, sorry. But
Okay.
Well,
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
so I mean, like, well, Danny does this because he's justifiably jumpy about his thesis because it sucks.
You haven't provided
when
an
you
account.
when you want
Danny,
to look at
let him finish.
So if you want to look at an account for teleology, something that pretty much does the exact same thing as like classical teleological notions, you can look to natural selection to do that. When you're talking about, function, and then you say it reduces to just what the organism does, but natural selection has an extra component to that. It does what it does, but for a reason. That's the whole point about selection.
That's insane.
Selection
That's
is
why I don't accept
for
natural
a
selection.
reason. Excuse me. I haven't
Yeah, I don't
finished my
accept
thought
natural
yet, and you're
selection.
jumping in once more.
Danny, one at a time, for fuck's sake.
So yeah, I mean, like, you're trying to reduce it just down to the behavior, and then pointing out, like, hey, I mean, like, there's no purpose involved when we're just looking at the behavior. But the behavior was chosen for a purpose, and it wasn't chosen
You're
by a
equivocating on
conscious
purpose.
mind, but it was delineated by the environment. That's natural selection, and that's how a naturalist would go about
Right. I reject
accounting
natural
for
selection as a mechanism.
teleology in a modern sense.
You're
You are
repeating yourself.
absolutely terrible at
You're just
allowing a
repeating
person to finish their sentence before they jump
Yeah, because
in.
I can't stand people repeating
Stop,
them.
shut the fuck up for a second.
Jesus Christ, what's going on?
Seriously. Because I mean, like, a person should be able to present their point before you respond to it. If you have a problem
You
with
already
it,
presented your point. I'm
that's
saying you're
fine.
equivocating on.
Just wait till he's done, Danny.
Take control. What the fuck?
Wait till he's done.
All right. So anyway, so I made
teleology.
the main thrust of my point there. Danny can respond with his following convolution and bullshit. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're equivocating on teleology there, and I don't accept natural selection as an explanation.
Why?
I think Fodor's objection goes through with respect to natural selection, and I don't think
Voters?
Jerry Fodor's objection to natural
Yeah, so
selection.
what Darwin got wrong is what you're going to rely on? Have you dealt
course.
with any of the accounts that actually deal in depth with Fodor?
Yeah.
Yes, have you? Have you looked at the
Yeah.
accounts that respond to the
Yeah, I
account?
read what Darwin got wrong years ago. And
Okay,
no,
so
I mean,
what do
like,
you have problems
and,
with
and
those
besides the fact that Fodor doesn't actually say that natural selection isn't a thing, he spends the first part of that book basically saying,
You
like,
didn't read the book. The very first
Darwinism is
introduction-
right, but I just want
the
to cause up
introduction says
some
you should
trouble
discard
by
the whole thing.
these analytic demarcation lines that I want to draw in terms of like the conceptualizing of these terms. But the first half of that book, he goes out of his way to say, like, yeah, okay, so basic Darwinian theory, I really don't have a problem with it, pointing out that it's like a hyperbolic title, what Darwin got wrong, and he wants to go into these like little
I've read the
tidbits
book.
about natural
I've read the book
selection.
too, and you would know that he
Yeah.
rejects natural selection outright. He doesn't reject Darwinian, or he doesn't reject evolution or common ancestry, right? He rejects natural selection.
But
But he
natural
doesn't reject-
selection. Oh my fucking! Go ahead. I'm done.
Because I mean, he doesn't reject natural selection completely. What he tries to do is come up
No, he
with
does
ways.
so completely.
What?
He does so completely. I can give you the citation on the page.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Because when I was reading that book, the first half of that book goes out of its way to say, of course, natural selection happens, of course, evolution happens, yada, yada, yada.
You
But
misread.
this is not the main way to account for major changes in evolution, is what he was trying to say. So
Yeah,
he
you
was
misread.
trying to do basically the move of, evolution by natural selection is a thing, but I want to look for other ways in which to understand the
Yeah, you misread.
emergence of complexity and biodiversity.
Let me get you the page number.
Danny,
Hey,
I know I have a
can I
bias.
jump in here for a sec while we're
Yes, go ahead.
talking about this? I would like
Yeah.
to ask Danny if he could define natural selection for us and just tell
Oh,
us how that
boy.
works.
Oh boy, yes.
There you go.
Can we just so we're all on the same page with what we're talking about here? Can Danny define natural selection and maybe Darwinian evolution and the modern synthesis and the integrated synthesis, just so we're all on the same page with what mechanisms people do and do not accept?
Yeah, and
Yeah, I'll do
let
that for you. Let me get the page
let
number.
each other
for-
finish
Great.
before you jump in on them. And I realize I just jumped in on somebody. I apologize. But I'd like Danny to be able to do his definitions without somebody objecting immediately.
Yeah, and and as he does so, as he's looking for his references here so we can flesh out Fodor's exact argument, I just want to point out that if you're going to go with this, though, if you're going to really hone in on problems with natural selection, this isn't just a philosophical discussion anymore. This will get into the actual science. And so,
XIV, look up XIV. So it's not a page number, it's in the terms of engagement. Look at the the first paragraph on that page, literally the second to the last sentence.
Okay, tell me how to find this.
Go to the very beginning, like the preface or the terms of engagement is what I have on my copy.
Yeah,
it's
what the
going to
hell?
be, is that where it is?
Why can't? Okay, somebody have to teach me how to use
Yeah,
Oh,
terms
okay.
of engagement.
terms of engagement.
Yes.
Am I supposed to be seeing it here somewhere?
Yeah, look above one. Look above one. Sorry.
Okay.
Above one. Above.
Oh,
That's-
right there.
Yeah. Okay. And then go to the next page.
Okay.
Because my version is slightly different. Next page. Okay. Look at you see the first paragraph of that page. Look at, yes. Okay. Look at this, the first paragraph on that page. Look at a couple of sentences before. I'm going to read it. We have both spent effort and ink rebutting some of the most egregious of these neo-Darwinist spin-offs, but we think that what is needed is to cut the tree at its roots to show that Darwin's theory of natural selection. Did I miss it?
Where in the hell? Am I on the right page?
Yeah, look.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so where are you starting to read? At the top of the page?
It's midway through the first paragraph there. So he says it's toward the bottom of that paragraph. We have both spent effort and ink rebutting some of the most egregious of these neo-Darwinist spin-offs, but we think that what is needed is to cut the tree at its roots to show that Darwin's theory of natural selection is fatally flawed. That's what this book is about.
Oh, yeah, I saw that part.
Right. So, but he goes on in other sections of the book. He points out how he's not, that he still thinks that Darwinian evolution with natural selection has its place. He says that at some points in the book.
He thinks that
Yes,
he presents alternatives to.
Yeah. Yes,
But
he
he's
does.
not-
Can I
he
ask a question?
Natural selection to be rescued.
Yep.
Can I ask a
Dan?
question briefly? So because I haven't read this book, I'm familiar with some of Fodor's other work, but I haven't read the book. So does he accept things like genetic drift? Does he accept things like
Yes.
sexual selection? Like, because
Yes.
if he's arguing against Darwinian
Well, no, I
evolution,
don't
I
know
mean,
about
I don't accept Darwinian evolution as an all-encompassing explanation because Darwinian
Right.
evolution is from 1859. Nobody accepts Darwinian evolution anymore.
Right.
And this is why I asked for
Presumably-
the definitions for these different things, because if you want to argue against Darwinian evolution's ability to be
But that's not
responsible
the
for all the
argument. I'm saying
variation we
that's
see,
natural selection.
then I agree with you. Darwinian evolution is not responsible for all the variation
It's
we
not
see
the-
because it's a
natural selection is the
160-year-old idea. Please stop interrupting.
Who keeps muting Danny? Does somebody else have mute powers?
No, I'm
I
not-
wish I did.
Did you mute yourself, Danny? Oh,
Yeah. I said what I had to say. Right. It's
Oh,
not a
okay.
it's not a criticism of Darwinian evolution so much as the natural selection part of it.
Right, because those things are totally separable. I
Natural.
hope
See,
that
this
they
is what. But
close-
wait. This is why I asked. This is why I asked Danny, guys. This is why I asked Danny to define his terms earlier, because Darwinian evolution is evolution by natural selection. Those two phrases are interchangeable. So how do you reject the natural selection but accept Darwinian evolution? You can't. They are the same thing.
Presumably
right?
he thinks that
Darwinian
there is
evolution, the
selection.
only mechanism, the old Danny, let me finish. Danny, let me finish. The only mechanism that Darwin posits for evolutionary change is natural selection. All
Right.
the other mechanisms that we now recognize as evolutionary mechanisms are post-Darwinian. So to argue against Darwinian evolution is nonsensical because nobody in the year of our Lord 2021 accepts Darwinian evolution as the explanation for extant biodiversity.
Maybe I'm ignorant, but isn't it? I thought Darwin postulated common ancestors.
He postulated the truth of universal common descent. The mechanism that leads you to that would be natural selection.
Does
Those are
Darwinian evolution encompass common ancestry? Yes or no?
Yes, that is the observation. It is not the
So
mechanism.
it's not a representation of Darwinian evolution.
The
Because Darwin
mechanism. No, Danny, listen, you're interrupting and you don't understand the topic here. Darwinian evolution is a mechanism. The thing that Darwin says my mechanism explains is universal common descent. Universal common descent is the situation that Darwinian evolution, i.e. evolution by natural selection, explains according to Charles Darwin. We now know that there are many other mechanisms in addition to natural selection that explain universal common ancestry.
Look, that's not what you said initially. Initially, you said to refute natural selection is to refute Darwinian evolution. That's what I took you to be saying. But clearly,
Yes, because they are
That's
yes,
what he
they
did.
are the same thing. Yes.
No,
Yeah,
if
that's what
Darwinian
he just got
evolution
done
is
saying.
common
Natural
ancestry,
selection.
then it doesn't follow that if natural selection is false.
Can I just point out for everybody? Can I just point out for everybody that the philosopher is telling the evolutionary biologist what evolutionary biology is?
Look, I'm not
Can I
interested
just
in
point
that.
that out for everybody?
I'm not interested in the meta conversation. I'm
So,
just
I mean,
pointing
like,
out that
what-
Darwinian evolution has built-in common ancestry. So to refute natural selection is not
Common
to refute
okay,
all of
a
it.
little history
No.
lesson. Okay, a little history lesson.
Yeah.
Darwin observed how you could have in the short term, you could have the common ancestry of small groups of organisms, right? Most famously, the finches on the Galapagos Islands, right? He said, you know what? It's reasonable, given things like the fossil record, to extrapolate that back universally, to have what's called universal common ancestry. He proposed, so that is his, he's saying this is the thing that happened, right? That's not Darwinian evolution. That is just the thing we're seeking to explain. Darwinian evolution is evolution by natural selection. It's the mechanism that explains that hypothesis, that observation, right? That's what Darwinian evolution is. It's the mechanism of evolution by natural selection.
All right,
Yeah,
You are
Darwin-
saying Darwinian.
Darwin-
now that
Darwin
the terms
was-
are clear, then he
Darwin
has
was not the first.
I can't understand what
Darwin
anyone
was not
said.
Oh boy. Darwin was not the first to talk about common ancestry. That's why it's not,
Correct.
considered an
Correct.
essential aspect of
He
Darwinian
never made the claim that it was
evolution. What
essential.
Darwin, you just got done saying, well, isn't common ancestry part of Darwinian evolution? No, the whole thing about Darwinian evolution is to explain common ancestry through a particular mechanism. That's what
Exactly.
Darwinian evolution is.
Yes.
So
Yep.
there is no distinction between Darwinian evolution and natural selection. If that's what you mean by Darwinian evolution,
No.
Danny.
then follows.
I'm starting to
All right,
really
I'm
doubt you're a
done.
philosopher. Yeah, I'm starting
After
to really
that-
doubt.
Yeah, no, I'm done. I'm done. All right, y'all. I'm gonna catch you back in the chat because after that one, I just got to retire.
Well,
okay,
I
okay.
don't know
Yeah,
what
you
to
can
say.
throw
about
it
that.
down.
Hold on,
Just-
hold on.
I'll catch you in the
Hold
chat.
on, I want to say
Cheers,
something.
y'all.
We
Okay,
just
let
spent 10 minutes
Midnight
saying 2 equals 4, and then
Are y'all
Danny
just
comes
gonna
in and
talk about
says,
the meta?
"Oh, so you all agree that 2 plus 2 equals 5?" Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so y'all just going to talk about the meta instead of like responding to Fodor or something.
Okay, hang on a second. Yeah.
I just want to say something really quick, okay?
Probably about the meta.
Danny, will you shut the fuck up and let me say
That
something?
was too funny.
I can't yell. My downstairs neighbor's gonna bitch at me.
All right, so I mean, like, yeah, I would be interested in discussing Fodor, but I mean, at the same time, I mean, if we can't even understand what Darwinian evolution is, then I mean, we're gonna have a really hard time in the rest of our conversation.
Right.
So
Okay.
I mean, like,
Yeah.
If you're not interested, sit back down.
Well, I didn't get it.
I'm not interested in having a confusion with somebody who doesn't even know their
Sit
basics.
back down. You can just
I
leave the
still
call.
didn't
Stay
get
quiet.
to say
Remain
what I
quiet.
needed to say.
Go ahead,
Okay,
Midnight.
right,
Talk about
okay.
the meta.
I'm not gonna fucking talk about the meta, okay?
You can change the
Okay.
subject.
Danny, will you shut
Let
the fuck
Midnight
up and let me talk? Okay, as I said in the side chat, okay, philosophers and scientists need to stop fighting amongst themselves
Yeah,
and
this
get together and actually figure shit out. Okay, you are a piece of shit, Danny.
Yeah, you're just talking
Okay.
about the meta.
Okay,
This is
Midnight.
exactly what I predicted. Just a meta.
Okay.
Okay, Midnight.
Look, I would say
wasn't.
though,
I wasn't done, but okay, I'm done.
Yeah, I mean, he likes enjoying. He can't participate in the actual core of the discussion, so he just talks about the meta.
What the fuck
so
does that
I mean,
mean?
like, the whole thing about this philosophy and science thing, I mean, both, as far as I'm concerned, both parties are to blame. You see people like Sean Carroll and Stephen Hawking talking about, basically the death of philosophy. So they want to, shunt off philosophy as
I know.
unimportant. But then,
Right.
but then you have the philosophers acting as if because they are the foundational discipline,
just
that,
more meta?
it's as deep as
Yeah,
they go.
so much meta.
this is-
God, that was so
this
boring.
is, excuse me, I wasn't commenting on your part of the conversation. I was commenting on the last comment. So yeah, it's going to involve the meta because that was the issue that was
The
talked about in
conversation-
the last comment. If you
The
want to discuss the actual issues of Fodor,
The
we
conversation
can.
had
But once we get
the conversation.
go ahead.
Yeah, the conversation had to do between attention of my profession versus your profession, so it is meta.
It's not my profession. I'm not a scientist, and I'm not a professional
Really?
in any
That's what you
field.
took
But
away
if
from
I was
that?
going to,
You couldn't be
if I
charitable.
was
in the
going to
profession?
choose, excuse me, if I was going to choose a field in which I had like my main
You really think
expertise,
I was talking about
in,
professional literal sense, right? I don't.
I mean, in the sense that I
I'm
do not
talking
have
about
a
our interest, our background, whatever, right? The point is,
right.
you're
I'm talking about
You're
not
so
having.
uncharitable.
Excuse me, once again, I'm talking about not having a degree. That is the sense in which I am not a professional.
yeah.
So, but if you want, but excuse
That's
me,
not what I mean.
but you were, excuse me. If you,
You're not
if you were
Danny,
saying that,
stay
hilarious.
I mean, it's just like, holy hell, every single time I start again, you start chirping.
You're a gibberish
So it's just like-
generator.
So what I wanted to say here is that you just got said, my profession and your profession, but it's just, I just wanted to clarify, science is not my profession. I'm
It's
not
an
a professional
uncharitable
in every
interpretation.
field. Shut up.
Uncharitable interpretation.
Shut up. Holy
No, I'm not
hell,
going to shut
dude.
up when you're
You're not going to shut up. You're going
uncharitable.
to keep interrupting because you're too fucking scared to let people get out any alternative ideas because you know how shitty.
I already know
your
what you're
thesis
saying,
is.
right? You're
And you thought I was bad speed.
What?
Holy hell. All I wanted to do was clarify that I'm not a professional in either of these fields, but what I would say is that if I could choose a strong point for myself, it would be philosophy rather than the sciences. That's all I was trying to get out there before Danny's 30 different interruptions before I could get that sentence out. So
Okay.
I just wanted to say that I was commenting on the meta that was part of the last comment from, what was that from?
Hey,
Midnight?
hello.
Hour?
Yes. By the way,
So-
I got to comment that you were more vicious than I was. Okay, Speed, he was more vicious. So,
Well, Jesus Christ, Danny, you're making it impossible to have a conversation here. Nobody
Yeah.
can fucking understand
Danny,
you guys. God damn it! Nobody can understand you guys when you're talking at the same time. This is
exactly.
a one stream.
And then you have to just let me speak.
Okay, well,
May
why
I
don't
jump in
you
at some
when
point?
you're ready? For
I just wanted to say one last thing, which is that I understand if, because Danny right now, he's in a live stream chat where the vast majority of people don't agree with him. So he's kind of in the lion's den right now. And I understand that he needs to be more forceful in his presentation. But at the same time, you can let people get their sentence out before you start trying to rebut the point. And I would just ask that you do that for the purposes of this conversation.
If I talk, if I interject, it's for a reason.
No, you
there
can-
is no fucking reason to overtalk people.
Where there's
No,
no
I
reason
think there is in this case.
If you have a rebuttal, you can give it after the person is done. There's no reason.
Why would I have them waste their breath?
Excuse me, because
May I jump in once we're done with this little? Thank you.
you want to make sure that you have the person's position totally fleshed out before you comment on it, and not just for your perspective where you presume you understand where they're coming from, but also for the audience's sake, so that way they get all the ideas fleshed out clearly in the conversation. It's simply a matter of civil conversation. So apparently, not only do you have no understanding of basic Darwinian evolution, but you're incapable of having a civil conversation. It's not going so well for you there.
The point is that when Dan came in and was critical of what I said, he misconstrued what I was saying completely. He doesn't understand the difference between a normative fact versus a or descriptive fact, right? And so he jumps to the conclusion that I'm making the claim that biologists are using the terms in a wrong way, right? All I was interested in was discussing the tension between a normative claim and a natural claim, and how biology uses normative language, right, and attempts to track these kinds of themes in their discipline.
No, we don't.
Yes,
I on that because I have it, because this is relevant to what I started with, and thank you for clarifying that, Dan. When you say, because biologists use normative language, blah, 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 this is what I'm talking about. Biologists use technical terminology in a way that is different from the way you're using it. You're trying to apply a philosophical lens to technical terminology outside of the field of philosophy. The words literally mean different things in different fields. That's
Right.
the problem we're
aware of
having
that,
here.
and
And let me finish, Danny. Let me finish. The reason
should
we're
let
having
me
a problem here is that difference between the two fields. And this is why I started a little while ago by saying, what is the definition you're using for basic terms like natural selection, like Darwinian evolution? Because that is the starting place to arrive at a set of terms with a set of agreed upon definitions. And we couldn't even get that far. That's the problem.
Personally, I think that natural selection is actually immaterial to the point that I was making. I just said I didn't accept it. So don't appeal to it as some kind of like authority or some kind of thing that would motivate me to revise my views. Okay. The thing that I was trying to point out is that if you define normative in a particular way or function in a particular way, the alternative is understanding what the meaning is if you were to negate it. And I'm saying there's a problem for biologists either way. So it doesn't matter, right, what you're telling me with respect to what we mean by the term if I've framed it in a kind of bivalent setting, right?
But right there, that thing you just did, that's what I'm talking about. When you say, if I framed it in a bivalent setting, what you're saying is, if I define the words different from the way you're using them, then you have a problem.
No,
But
that's not what
the
that
thing.
means.
You don't
wanna ask
get
me what
to
it
just
means?
redefine the words.
That's not, you misinterpreted what I said, right? I'm saying that if it's framed in a bivalent way, right, it just doesn't matter what you
What
mean
do
by
they mean framed in a bivalent way?
So it's basically either the word means A or not A. And I'm saying that with respect to biology, if you mean A, there's a problem. If you mean not A, there's a problem. You see?
With function?
Yeah.
Okay, when we talk about function in biology,
But you
I
didn't
don't think
define
we have a
function
problem.
correctly. Danny, you didn't define function correctly at the top.
No.
So once again, you're
Look, the
using the
point-
wrong definition of words.
You're still not getting it. You're still not getting
No,
it.
no,
Look, if I
I'm
define,
getting it. You're saying, according to a definition, either A or not A, either one has a problem. But the thing you're using for A is wrong. The thing you said,
What am I
biological function is whatever, is not what it is.
What did I say was A, since you listened?
Function.
No, how did I define function?
You
How
said
did
it
you
was
define function?
teleologically meant
Yeah.
to do something.
The teleological understanding and there's the non-teleological understanding. Teleological understanding involves a purpose or a goal, maybe. These are just synonyms, okay?
Right, which we don't
Where-
use.
Which we
Whereas
don't use in biology, but fine.
Right. So then the negation of a purpose is what we call a kind of behavior. Behavior.
don't.
Right.
That's
Now,
not
I
what the word
understand-
means.
I understand that we
that's
think
wrong. Look,
differently,
I
but
don't
I'm
have
pointing
look.
out.
This has been fun, but I do need to go and kind of finish up the rest of my day. But that is the fundamental disagreement. You are defining the words in a way that the field of biology does not use them.
It's a
And
true
that's the
dichotomy.
fundamental problem here. So I do
I've
need to
used
go,
the true
Speed.
dichotomy.
Thanks for having the show. I'm going to keep listening, but I can't keep chatting. Talk to
Thanks
everybody
for
later.
dropping in, Dan.
Bye.
Thanks, Dan.
See you, Dr. Dan.
Holy
So-
hell, this has been fun.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
so-
I mean,
So where we went off the rails there, Danny, is that the word behavior does have sort of a defined meaning for us, and it doesn't seem to match what you're using it for. So I encourage you to pick another word. So, okay, so we have a function which would be teleologically something for a purpose, which I don't think biologists use, the teleological definition.
Yeah, they shouldn't.
So what is the other definition? And don't use the word behavior. Use another word to describe it.
Let me phrase it this way. It's either prescriptive or descriptive. That's a true dichotomy. In other words,
Prescriptive or
the
descriptive.
right. So the point is that I take behaviors to be descriptive. Okay. I take purposes to be prescriptive. Okay. So if it's the case that you define function in a prescriptive way, you have a problem. If it's the case that you define function in terms of a descriptive way, there's another problem.
What's the problem with the descriptive way?
It's not tracking our natural language according to that paper that you posted, right? There's a problem in using these terms because the way that we mean, the way that we use the terms, not just in an everyday setting, but even in certain biological contexts, is not purely descriptive. And if it is purely descriptive, then you get into some really weird reductio ad absurdums. And this is where the conversation lies, right? If function is merely descriptive, right? And if all natural states are themselves descriptive, right? The notion of function is just vacuous at that point.
Not really, because, well, let's see. Let me think about that.
well,
Okay. So if I wanted to describe a function of a, let's see, a function of a cell's proteome, basically. Okay.
That tells what?
A cell's proteome, the proteins that make up a cell. So,
Okay.
so if I had a set that was a proteome and I wanted to describe the cell's function, okay, I would say that the cell's function is how it interacts with maybe another cell. So we're looking at an interaction between two cells. So we have one cell that basically causes another cell to produce a different proteome. So we have proteome 1, so we have P1 produces P2 in the second cell. Okay, I would call the function of P1 to produce P2, basically. What's wrong with that?
Yeah. I want to change the example for simplicity's sake. If you don't want to use the example, I'll go back to yours. Is that a deal?
Go ahead and try, yeah.
Okay. There's a function of a heart, right? It pumps
Function of a
blood
heart.
to our system. Is this not a good, do you want to go back to yours?
Well, hang on a second. Let's see. Okay, heart. Its function pumps blood. Let me see if I can live with that.
If not, we can go to your other example.
Okay, so we could say the function of the heart is to deliver oxygen to the other cells. Okay.
Right. Okay.
So it's an O2 delivery system.
So when it's not doing that, it still has a function, right? It's not delivering oxygen. So
Okay.
it's a function either way. No matter what the heart is doing, it has a
I'm
function.
sorry. No, whoa, wait a second there, because I was with you all the way up until that last statement. If the heart's not doing anything, then it doesn't have a function.
Then it's dead.
Wait, but you notice how I understood function as either prescriptive or descriptive.
Right. And I don't have a problem with that at all. But I do have a problem with you suggesting that a thing can have a function even if it doesn't do anything.
Right.
Okay, so I did like what you said earlier, right? In the terms of we can understand function in terms of selection, right?
Yes.
So what explains why we say that the heart has a particular function is in terms of what's conducive to survival and reproduction.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. I mean, basically, it's the environment choosing a particular thing for a particular reason, and that's where the teleology comes in. It's that it's for a reason. The behavior that you see that you're talking about is for a reason, and that reason is whatever the environmental dynamics were that chose that particular behavior.
When you say for a reason, is that normative or descriptive, or prescriptive or descriptive?
I don't know if I go there, Dres.
I would say that it's one that gives rise to the other in the sense that it's purely a descriptive environment, but you're using the prescriptive terminology because of the interplay of two different forces, the environment and the living population. And because of the interaction between those two forces, talking about them loosely as forces, you get this trajectory of development. And that trajectory of development is for a reason. It's for the reason of the selection pressure that the environment put on that population.
Yeah, that's a beautiful notion of function.
Dres, I think using for a reason is going off the rails a little bit.
He just means like explained by, right? Or it's explained by.
Well, the other thing is when you talk about explained by, you're also going. I mean, we're talking about a heart's function as delivering O2 to the rest of the organism. Okay, why are you guys going all over to natural selection and flying all over? Why are you leaving that function? We're talking about a function.
Right. And he's talking about, the teleology, that what is the purpose of that function? Is there a purpose? Can we talk about purposes of functions? Yeah, that's what teleology is all about, purpose.
But
and so, I mean, like, what happened?
Would we do that? Why would we do that?
Well, that is the heart of his criticism, is basically saying biologists all the time use these prescriptive terms like the heart is for the purpose of pumping blood, or proteomes, like you were talking about. Whatever the function is, there's a reason for the function, and we talk in this prescriptive vocabulary all the time that the purpose of the heart or the function of the heart is to pump blood. And Danny's whole criticism is how to make sense of that without some kind of intelligent agent that, or at least the intelligent design advocate would go this way. How do you make sense of the notion of a purpose for things without an intelligent agent assigning that purpose to the thing?
Well, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't go there. I don't.
Well, but I agree with you that function has to be about selection, right? Now, the thing is that the reason why this was brought up is because I saw an interesting paper that by two very sophisticated philosophers, or academic philosophers in science and biology, that are pointing out that there's an overall issue with respect to normativity in nature, and I think that they're pointing out, look, there is something tricky going on here. Based on the little that I've read, I skimmed it for 10 minutes before Dr. Dan came in here, and I'm interested to see if they actually perceive a problem in biology, right? When I said there was a problem in biology, what I mean is that there's some extra feature in biology that's not present in chemistry and physics. That is to say, this notion of selection or this notion of function and purpose is not present in the other branches of science. So it has to be dealt with in some clever way. And I was interested in that paper.
That leads to the paper that we were talking about yesterday, is the cell and machine, and basically looking at this from an entirely different point of view. And I don't think when you talk about how did you put it? When we use these terms to describe a function, and then you want to, it didn't make any sense, because that isn't how, I don't think how Dr. Dan thinks or I think. When I think, okay, the heart, if you want to talk about the purpose of the heart, then you're talking about what its function is, what it's doing in the organism, and we know that it is cleverly delivering O2 to the rest of the organism. That's all we know. That's full stop. We're not going to talk about teleology or purpose. And if you want to talk about how it got selected, well, that's an entirely different conversation. I think I think
Who are you talking to? Sorry.
I'm talking to you.
Well-
The place where we have the difference, where we differ, is that you think we're saying something or thinking something that we don't think we're saying or thinking. And then we get a little bit irritated with
I don't
it.
know how to pronounce his name, but he would agree with me. What you just said is problematic, actually vastly problematic.
Vastly
right.
problematic. That
Yeah,
I think
no,
that the
if
heart
he's honest, he's going to admit that not understanding function in terms of selection, right, is going to be a problem for your use of the word function.
function and selection. Well, that would be another conversation. Okay.
Well, that was the
We-
whole conversation.
I don't think so. I thought we were talking
Well, then
about
maybe we're just talking past each other. But the point is that if you don't understand function or purpose in terms of a particular set of descriptive facts which have to do with selection, you're in trouble.
Well, don't fucking tell me what I don't understand, because I'm telling you that these are not problems for me and not problems for us in general until
Why
you
isn't
get,
this guy speaking up? He should support me, right? He should, because I'm not. My words are probably going to mean very little to you, but maybe because you think I'm highly motivated, perhaps, which I'm fine with you thinking. But this guy right next to door, I don't know his name. Sorry, I can't see.
Drace.
Grace disagrees with you as well.
Okay, Drace, how do you disagree with me?
Well, the thing is that I'm agreeing with Danny when he's talking about understanding function, the emergence of function by means of selection, that's the way that the naturalist would go. So, I mean, I agree with him there. It's just where we disagree is he thinks that natural selection is inept in that category, that it can't provide a basis of understanding function. And that's where we disagree.
Sorry, it's
So
not a mechanism.
I wanted to ask real quick. He mentions this paper, so I was interested to see what the paper was, and then also because it was like such a major part of our conversation at the beginning was going into Fodor's objection against natural selection, because I think that that's going to be a major crux of this whole debate.
I don't think so. I don't think anything turns on that. I could be wrong about Fodor, right? Because we could still, the notion of selection is a useful term. The argument that Fodor was giving is that natural selection as a theory is basically a moot mechanism. Okay. Now, whether we might disagree about that, right? But I still think that he's going to accept the term selection. I mean, there is selection going on, obviously, right? We just want to. Fodor just thinks that there are other things that explain that, right? So
that's
sorry. Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
All right, because I mean, I just want to point out that that's exactly what I was saying when we started off this conversation about Fodor, and you told me that I was wrong about that.
No, I thought the dispute, right, was that natural selection should be cast out as a mechanism or a theory.
No. What I'm talking about was I was talking about how natural selection can account for function, and then you gave a counter argument to the effect that Fodor is basically saying natural selection is phooey, and then I was saying no, he's not really saying that it's phooey. He's saying that it's not a total account. So there should be other mechanisms that
I think I
account for it.
justifiably misinterpreted you, because natural selection in normal context refers to the theory, the mechanism. You should have just said selection.
That's what I'm talking about. I don't understand your
selection
confusion.
Is not explanatory. Natural selection is explanatory.
Say that one more time. I missed the first word.
Selection is not explanatory, but natural selection is supposedly explanatory.
It is.
That just totally went over my head, because I don't make any distinction between the terms natural selection and selection. By those things, I mean the exact same thing.
Okay, wait. If I said that there's selection of this trait, have I explained anything?
Yeah, you would have it explained a lot in terms of, like, how the trait ends up in the population and why that trait is there to begin with.
Isn't there a whole question about why was there selection?
Yeah, that's what I just finished saying in the second part of my sentence. Why that is there to begin with.
Right. Now, natural selection as a theory is supposed to be the mechanism that answers that question.
It's the mechanism that answers the question of how that feature became prevalent in the population to the point where it defined basically what the population looks like. But a mutation but natural selection isn't going to describe how you got that feature to begin with, in the sense that what we're going to be talking about are mutations or other mechanisms that result in that feature being there, and then that feature is selected by the environment, and that selection is for a reason, which gets into the whole teleology thing.
Yeah, I don't think we agree, but I understand what you're saying now, and this is where we do agree, right? That function in biology ought to refer to some selection, right? We do agree to that, okay? As to what natural selection means and how it relates to whether natural selection is synonymous with selection, that's another debate, okay? But we do agree that if function is not tied to selection, there's a problem.
I agree with that, even though others here might disagree. They might think that there's some kind of distinction to be made there. But I think that if you're going to account for function from a naturalistic perspective, you're going to be talking about natural selection.
Well, the point being is that I was interested. I think biologists can make sense of and I mean, I don't know what it would mean to say. What would it mean for me to say that they're not licensed to the terms? That doesn't make any sense, right? I'm saying that there's a delicate problem here, and it's not a problem that can't be solved, right? I think one of the ways that it can be solved is doing what we just said with respect to understanding it as a function of selection. Now, the paper was interesting to me. I just posted it. You see Drace on the right, the private chat. These are two philosophers of biology and philosophers of science. One of them is a molecular biologist, right? And they wrote on the relationship between essentially the normative sense of function, normativity, right, and the natural, right? Because this is not something that is just like not considered a topic at all, right? There is a tension here, some kind of tension. Whether it can be solved or not is a different, like some people think that, yeah, there's a problem of evil, but given these theodicies, not so much of a problem at all. That's how I meant it.
Okay, so I mean, like, with respect to this, just hold on here, because I'm looking at your paper, and I see that it's a Nicholson paper as well. But yeah, I mean, so it seems like you're suggesting that what you said there is that it's a delicate problem, but it's not necessarily a problem that couldn't be solved. And then you point out, the natural selection account. So I mean, that's the way that I'm going with this. What I would like to hear from you though, because what you started off saying is that this response is not adequate in some way, shape, or form. And that's what I really want to get to. In what sense is this not an adequate response in terms of understanding prescriptive or teleological language in biology? And the last thing that I want to say about this is because you point out that in chemistry, for example, versus biology, in biology, there are certain things that you see that you don't see in basic chemistry. But that's something that you should expect in any science that is at a more macro level than the more reductionistic level. So, I mean, of course, you're going to see.
Think about astronomy. Think about astronomy.
Hold on. Of course, you're going to see certain features in biology where you have a more macro level study where, there are more higher levels of organization involved. You'll see things there that you don't see at the more primitive level. So, I mean, those are the things that I wanted to throw out there. And I'm just particularly interested to hear your response about why you think natural selection is inadequate in terms of understanding function from a naturalist perspective.
I think that's a plausible response, but there's still one thing is that technically it's not prescriptive. Whether that's a problem or not is a separate discussion. I don't think it to be a problem. Okay, if you have that understanding of function. The second thing is that on the macro level, think of astronomy. Astronomy is as macro as you get, right? But the notion of function, or at least the normative language, is not employed at all. Right, so it's unique in biology to use at least normative language.
I'm sorry, I zoned out. What the fuck are we talking about?
You can just put back down unless you want to talk about the meta as you usually do.
So I mean, like,
okay, what does that mean? What does that mean talking about the meta? Answer me that.
What does that mean? Like talking about the conversation rather than the topic of the conversation.
Then say fucking talk about the conversation. That's
He's a philosopher. You have to forgive him because that kind of vocabulary is rampant in the field.
He is not a fucking philosopher. Okay, he makes philosophers look bad.
You're so cute.
Anyway, okay.
You too, honey.
Okay.
All right. So, I mean,
You're
I
wrong.
basically, I did get the answers that I was looking for here. It seems like you're suggesting that what I'm saying is not terrible from a naturalist perspective.
No, I don't think so. I
Okay.
think what I said triggered some people, and when I said there's a problem in biology, right? And it was a it is something that I'm interested in because we really have this intuition. Look, let's grant your no, I'm not even granting. I accept what you said, but you can't help but have an intuition that these things actually have a kind of purpose, right? I do, at least. Maybe you don't, right? And I'm just saying that there's what's going on there with those intuitions, right? Most people have the intuition in our everyday human lives that there's a purpose to the heart, there's a purpose to the eyes in a normative sense. That's what it should be doing. But biologists don't talk that way. So in that, just that is some kind of tension worth investigating.
So, I mean, like, with respect to what you're saying there, I mean, like, I just don't, when I'm talking about natural selection, I think that gives that account that you're looking for. And I know you're going to say that you don't have a problem with this, but I just think that what you reiterated there kind of doesn't really get at the heart of it, because if we're talking about natural selection giving an account of function, then those intuitions that you have should dissolve upon properly understanding from whence it came. You know, like if you're just studying something from like a colloquial perspective of just like your basic observations in everyday life, you'll get certain intuitions about, you know, like, oh, this heart was like put here for like an intelligent purpose of pumping blood. But when you understand that natural selection has chosen that feature because of the interaction between environment and organism, you understand the arising of the purpose. And I think that would explain those intuitions perfectly fine.
Yeah, I'm not going to dispute that my intuitions could change as a result. But part of why I was interested in this paper is resolving a lot of that intuition, because while I am accepting this notion of function as a function of natural selection, right, or selection, you know, I'm very interested in what professional philosophers like these two, who are also scientists, I think one of them is actual scientist, he's a molecular biologist, have to say on the issue.
Sure. Yeah, I think that that's just fine. I mean, like, I want to hear from everybody who's a professional in the field, and I even want to hear from people who are non-professionals in the field if they have something insightful to say. I'm not trying to say that we should shut down this conversation. It's just that I think that this topic of conversation has a viable solution to the proposed problem.
Yeah.
It sounds like what we have here is a problem for how ordinary people have intuitions about biology. That's what it sounds like.
I think that's definitely part of the problem.
I don't see a problem for biology.
So
I want to depict I want to illustrate the sort of problem that's going on. Let's say I have a moral theory, right, that just doesn't track the way we talk. You know, like, let's say I think what we should do is a function of how much blood you lose or something. I don't know, right? Well, there's going to be, look at these instances in which we discuss these things. Obviously, we don't mean that, right? So you might want to take another look at your theory, and then I could just double down. I'm like, well, what's happening in the general public and everyday colloquial language, it's just not tracking how things are, right? And so I'm saying that there is something to be had if there's a big tension between the colloquial usage and the technical usage, but you could just go in the direction of like, yeah, colloquially, we don't know what we're talking about.
I think what we have here is a failure to communicate.
I want to say that I appreciate the conversation. I think that we got most of the things fleshed out that I wanted to flesh out. I'm going to head back to chat now. I appreciate the conversation. I don't know if
it was frustrating, but I kind of like power up when I'm kind of I don't really, I'm fine. Like, we could be best friends from now on if you want.
Yeah, it started off rough, but it got better, and I appreciate having the conversation. I think it's an interesting topic. But I'll just reiterate that I do think that there is a viable solution there. And I'll mention, as the last thing I'll say here, is that you said that you can't stand reading Dennett, and I sympathize. There's certain things that Dennett says that I'm not a big fan of. At the same time, I don't think he's terrible. But I will say that this very account that you just said was a plausible approach is contained and put forward by Dennett in that book I referenced you to, From Bacteria to Bach and Back. He has a chapter there concerning the return of teleology. And I would just, even if you don't like Dennett very much, I would just suggest check it out, because it's exactly what I just got done saying to you.
No,
Okay.
I respect Dennett as a philosopher. What I was referring to is my hatred of consciousness explained. But and there's, but
Consciousness Explained is the Bible. It is the Bible.
Anyway,
Dan Dennett is fucking Jesus Christ on this site.
Yeah,
So
well,
both of you shut the fuck up.
No,
right,
I think he's worthy of some kind of respect. I think he's a decent philosopher.
He is.
Yeah, but anyways, thanks. This Dr. Dan really is just.
Dr. Dan came in with everything Dr. Dan said was very reasonable, and you weren't listening.
It was like crazy.
You weren't listening to him.
All right, y'all.
And I don't think you're listening to me. Okay,
I'm going to
Drace.
catch y'all back in chat.
Hey, thanks for to show up more often. Damn it, you're good.
Yeah, sure, most definitely. As long as the topics tend to be like philosophy or science or things like that, I'll definitely jump on. But when it comes to politics and economics and stuff, I hold that stuff close to the chest, because I don't agree with anybody. And whenever I start
I
talking,
actually want to know your views there, because I have
that's going to remain. I'm sorry, but that's going to remain a black box. I'm not going into politics or economics, because I piss off everybody.
Okay.
So,
hold on.
I just want to know this.
Why do you piss off everybody?
Because I don't
by
agree
the way,
with you.
On a side note, what Dr. Dan what's posted, technical language is technical. The words mean different things.
You want to hang on a second, Danny? Drace wants to leave, and I wanted to say
Yeah,
something.
go.
Left. Okay, this same guy wrote an article that we're looking at, that Scott and I are looking at, and we're going to expand quite a bit in Journal of Theoretical Biology. Is the cell really a machine? And it addresses some of these same subjects, and I would appreciate if you joined us for that discussion when we have it. So,
Okay, before he leaves, I have a question. What is your name in chat?
What is
Drace,
my name? Yeah.
Drace something.
Yep, Drace.
Yeah, tag me because I want to talk to you.
Drace
Yeah,
something.
and by the way, what Creation Myths has posted there is just trivial. Technical language is technical. That's a tautology. Words mean different things, of course. What do you think? Who are you informing here?
You.
Those are tautologies. I'm aware that a thing is what it is, and I'm aware that people use language differently, right? God.
Okay, when you started talking to me about function, and I came up with the proteomes, the 2-cell examples, and I came up with the example of the heart using oxygen, that's how I think Dr. Dan thinks, and that's how I think. And then it is.
Dr. Dan I think he would say that function is ultimately tied to selection. Have him confirm it in the chat. If he doesn't confirm that, there's a big
function is definitely ultimately tied to it, but tied to it in very, very devious and interesting ways, which we would have to expound upon.
Okay, we don't disagree.
Okay. I mean,
All right, y'all. I gotta go. I'll catch y'all back in chat.
Bye-bye.
It's
Ciao.
not a problem. You think and to his most recent comment, Dr. Dan, do you think that problems are like real in the world? It's a problem relative to someone that feels like their theory should track what people are saying.
What was that now?
It's concerning if 99% of the population, right, mean Y by X, and then you don't, and it could potentially be a problem. May not be a problem. It could be a problem, right? It just depends on your goals and whether it's a problem or not.
Well, I have a interesting way of dealing with 99% of the population. Fuck them.
Look, when it comes to moral theories, we don't say fuck them, right? We talk about how do people talk, how do people interact with respect to their moral experience, right? And I think that with respect to notions like function, why is it that biologists are using these linguistic terms instead of just selection or something like that. Oh, yeah.
You realize the word function is mathematical for one thing. Mathematicians,
but they don't mean it. Do they? Now, I could be wrong. I don't know the history of biology here, but I'm inclined to think that the original, where the derivative or the etymology of function in biology does not come from a mathematical base.
Sure, I'm sure that biologists in the 1800s and the very early part of the 20th century had some pretty weird ideas. I know they did. And,
I'm not aware. I'm ignorant of it. But
most of them believed in some teleological fucking God sort of created thing. I don't care about them. Nobody cares about them. We care what happened since the year 2000, basically. And
I thought you were mentioning the mathematical definition as a likely candidate for where the word function came up in biology, right?
I think it's how we use it today. It's more of a mathematical term. So
you think selection is a mathematical term?
Selection is definitely mathematical. That's what it's all about. Selection is all about mathematics and population genetics, and basically selection of genes. There's the thing is that we're thinking in different terms, and it would be good if we could communicate with one another, or I could communicate to you how we do think of some of these things. And the start for that would be very, very simple models on how things work, particularly natural selection. Natural selection, I think I said it was I think I said it was like a brute fact. Which I may have gone a little too far, but it is a fucking fact, which is in between brute fact and the other facts. But it's definitely a fact. It's a fact of causality. It's how causality works. If you accept causality at all, then you're going to accept natural selection because it is mathematically pristine. Okay. And so natural selection is part of this whole story, a very big part of it. It is the filter. But instead of calling it natural selection, we might call it a filter. The problem with natural selection is that it kind of slides into this. In your mind, does it not collide with or attach to this idea of survival of the fittest? Danny? You're muted, Danny. Christ, everybody's muted except me.
I lost my tab. What did you ask?
Okay, I said, in your mind, is natural selection somehow tied to this idea of survival of the fittest?
Well, survival of the fittest isn't a proposition, and I understand natural selection as proposition.
Natural selection as a proposition. Let me see. What would that proposition be? Natural selection alone is not a proposition. You got to say more.
Right. It's a concept that refers to a set of propositions. For survival of the fittest is not one of those, right? So I guess I would accept Fodor's definition, but
of natural selection.
It's just something that's meant to
Could you share that with us?
It's something meant to explain like a distribution of traits, whether those be phenotypic or whatever, in a population over time and generations, right?
Okay, if Fodor says that natural selection is something to explain, quote unquote, then he's automatically wrong.
You could understand in terms of like a principle that as well, like a law, but those are not quite.
No, not even that. Not even a law. Well,
then you're just not talking about what Fodor is talking about, I suppose.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell he's talking about. I've been trying to figure that out, but it's almost law-like in that, like what I said, that natural selection is almost, it's related to causality in biology, basically. It's how one generation gets into the next generation. There has to be selection there, or there's going to be selection. If anything goes wrong with an organism, it is not going to survive to reproduce. So, that's pretty easy to understand. And that is the only way you should understand natural selection and fitness, is in this idea of we have an extant set of organisms in the world at moment T1 or T0, and at T1, these things reproduce. We'll put that in quotes for now, and they create another set of organisms out in the future, right? Out of those organisms, some will survive and some will not survive. And that's just based on what happens between T0 and T1. So that's that, and there's a filter there, and that filter tends to be the environment and other, natural things that we like. If you can't breathe oxygen, you're fucked. That sort of thing. So I mean, thinking about it in simple mathematical terms eliminates a lot of this confusion. And that's probably what we need to be better at communicating. And we need to stop using these general ideas and terms and these intuitions on biology, because biology, life is something very, very different from what we're used to in the laboratory. Okay. There's something going on here that is quite immense, and it is mathematical and it is complex. And we need to be better at communicating that to people, I think. For instance, Danny, you are a mushroom. You are nothing more than a mushroom in a big, long germline. And the real important thing is that germline. None of us matter. Anyway.
I hope I'm one of the good ones.
Good mushroom?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're the kind that makes
Wait for Midnight to snipe. Go ahead, Midnight.
Snipe Midnight. Hey, Midnight.
Hey, yeah, I'm still here. Still around.
Yeah.
Because why not? But that Dreas fella seems to be interesting.
Yeah. So, Danny, I think you're an Amanita muscaria. Taken in small quantities, you can get a little bit high, but if you eat too much, you're going to die.
By the way, I don't mind you muting me. I actually had a little bit
What's
of
that?
I thought it was so funny. You muted me, and I was just...
You were just being a little asshole, and then I realized that I had this power to put you backstage. Yeah.
I thought that was so funny, honestly.
Okay. Anyway,
you can abuse me anytime you want.
I like abusing you.
Anytime you want. I love it.
I also appreciate your presence. So it always makes the discussion very, very interesting. But goddamn, you got to learn that the people listening out there are not going to. I mean, part of what we're trying to do is entertain a few people, and you can't entertain people if you're talking at the same time and you're over talking.
Oh, I bet you that people were entertained.
Speaking of over talking, Danny, Creation Mist, otherwise known as Dr. Dan, would like to have a one-on-one with you at some point. If you feel better about it.
We would do that. I think I don't remember emailing him. I thought I did. I don't remember. But yeah, we should do that.
You guys please do it here.
Yeah, well, I'll do it wherever since he offered. I'll do it where he wants to do it.
Yeah.
That sounds like a great idea.
I mean, I have a channel, but I hardly use it anymore.
And Dr. Dan, I will commit to letting you finish all of your sentences. Okay.
Okay, I'll put you two together in email, and we'll set up a time.
Because the reality is that you have a lot. I have a lot to learn from you. That's just true. I don't know.
I love the Freudian slip there. You have a lot. You.
Well, no. I'm about to say that too. But I think honestly, based on what you said, you have a lot to learn from me as well. And I know that sounds bad, but I mean, some of the stuff that you've said, it seems so trivial to me.
Hey, Danny, let me give you a little tip. Like, okay, you have a lot to learn from him. He has nothing to learn from you. Or actually, no. Let me phrase that a better way. You know what? Never mind.
We are wrapping. We're going to wrap up soon, by the way. So I want Andrew to come in because I need to talk to him backstage for a little while. But anyway, so I wanted to get a little more into this fitness thing, and I kind of wanted to explain. But I think I did. I think I did explain how I see fitness.
Should I answer Andrew's question, or should you want to go on?
What's that?
Should I answer Andrew's question, or should you go on?
Yeah, you can go ahead and answer Andrew's question. He's asked it twice.
I don't know what it means. So if you ask me what I think about that, to me, it's like blah, 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 blah. That's basically what that means to me.
It's about physics.
Good enough. Okay. So Andrew come in, and I think we're going to wrap up for the day, but that was a pretty good discussion. But do you think, Danny, that did I illuminate you on how I think of natural selection?
Well, yeah, you've said similar things, but I think that part of the problem is that, and this is not a criticism, right? Is that we have very different methodologies about approaching to an issue. I'm very, very technical with the meanings of the words, right?
Right. And I'm very, very physicalist with what it means in terms of physicality only.
Yeah, whatever that. The point is that I think that if we were to have a discussion about like natural selection again, it would have to be. The methodology would drive you nuts. I think I would ask you, okay, let's put the what natural selection is on the screen, and let's analyze all the entailments from it. You know, and
Okay.
and I don't think you. I mean, does that sound like fun to you? Because
That sounds like fun to me. That's how I have fun.
You know, we could do that at some point, but I think
I do that.
Go ahead.
I do that
I'm
every
gonna do that with
morning.
Dr. Dan, right? Presumably, we're gonna come to a notion of natural selection. I'm gonna present an objection if I see one, and then it'll go from there, right? And I'm gonna reread Fodor for Dr. Dan's sake because it has been a while. But
Yeah, read
I
them
will
for
never
my
forget
sake
the-
because I can't read the son of a bitch. He's too convoluted. And try to distill for us what the hell he's really saying.
Yeah, I'm going to use citations to help people. So y'all, because I actually feel slightly uncomfortable that everyone's idea of Fodor is coming from just me. It should come from the text probably. But
That's good. That's good. We'll do.
Yeah, I don't want y'all to just take my word for it that this is what Fodor is saying, because Fodor is saying, he's very nuanced and dense. So I'm going to just highlight stuff. I'm going to get ready some slides and some very relevant quotes to all my claims.
Good.
And then we can talk, this is what Fodor is saying. And does the objection apply to Dr. Dan's understanding of natural selection? And that'll be the topic when we discuss.
Okay.
Right.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. Fodor's dense.
Yeah. He's pretty dense for me.
Dense. Define dense. Anyway, okay. Good enough. So we're going to end the live show. Andrew, get your butt in here. Oh, I got to give you an invite, Andrew.
By the way,
yeah.
Dapper Dino is allegedly having that alleged discussion with Otangelo in about 7 minutes.
Oh my God. Otangelo Grasshole or Grasshole? Grasshole.
Grasso, I would think.
Grasso, not Grasshole.
Grasshole is a different story.
Okay. Anyway, so Creation Miss has a question that you may want to look at before you do your slides. Objection to natural life, and does it apply? Okay, to Dr. Dan's explanation. Was that it? I guess so. Yeah. So I'll put you guys together in email and
Yeah. Now,
be sure to reply to all and do everything for me, please, in Central Time, or the old man will become very confused.
Now, Dr. Dan, I know you can hear me hopefully. So 2 things. I'm an educator and you are too. Okay. I'm a graduate student. I love learning. So we should dedicate a good part of our discussion in just understanding Fodor, his concerns, natural selection as Fodor saw it, and then natural selection as you see it. And then we'll put the picture together for everyone. And then I'll present my objection if I see it. And if I don't present an objection, that means that, then we just move on from that. Right. But I think that it would be really cool if we did the first half or the first bit to just dedicate ourselves. Okay, what is natural selection under Fodor? What is Fodor's objection to that understanding? And then what do you mean in the scientific consensus mean by natural selection? Does it match what Fodor is saying? Okay. And if it does, then does the objection go through? That is, we should make it purely academic if you want.
Okay. So let's end the live broadcast, please. What do you think? What? What's happening?
I misapplied that word. Sorry.
Well, we will end the live broadcast. Goodbye, cruel world. We're out. Over and out. Peace. Yeah. Oh no. No peace around this fucking place.